Hello everybody, yes, it's me, GhostCritic. I am finally back. My internet is fully functioning now and I can do a comic book review video. Yes, I didn't manage to do one last week because my internet was out, which means I've decided to double up. Yes, I've got this big stack of the last 2 weeks. This is generally just a week's worth for someone like Travis, but this is 2 weeks for me. And so I'm going to kind of keep these very, or hopefully very succinct and to the point. And as the title of this video says, in a nutshell, rather than ramble on and on about it. Just to remind everyone that's new here or has forgotten, there will be spoilers. I'll be talking about story points, cliffhangers, surprises galore throughout. So if you've not read any of these books, fast forward the video or stop it, go read your book, and then come back and listen to my thoughts. Now, because there's so many, I've kind of put them in themes, I guess you'd call them, and you will see what those themes are as we go along. So strap yourselves in for 2 weeks worth of comic book reviews.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
There are always books on our pull list that kind of fall short for us, and that's just the nature of comic books. Sometimes they can be really great and then they just miss the mark by sometimes miles. And these 4 books just didn't cut the mustard over the last 2 weeks, and they are unfortunately familiar faces for being the not the best books to be reading at the moment, but hopefully once new creative teams have come on, they will once again shine. And I'm kicking off with issue number 29 of Wonder Woman, and I'm just kind of glad that this is the penultimate issue. Despite the fact that this is part 4 now of Heart of the Amazon, each issue has felt very kind of insular. There's been, apart from this idea that someone's after Wonder Woman's DNA, they felt very episodic and not really flowed as a story arc, and I guess that's not really Shea's fault. She has only had a limited time to tell this story before she goes off and we get a new creative team, and this just feels like a lot of filler, and we don't really learn a great deal more about Wonder Woman than we already do. Her strong independent nature, her fight to protect all those who are nearest and dearest to her, not just nearest and dearest but the whole world, and at a point the struggle becomes too real. So I'm kind of looking forward to Shea leaving the title, getting our new creative team on here, and hopefully they'll be able to build on what was a great solid start. One that we continue to see at the end, at the kind of bottom end of the books, and I feel a bit bad because of this, because this one isn't as bad as it has been. It's The Punisher. Issue number 15, written by Becky Cloonan, and those of you who've been watching me lately know my feelings about Becky on this book. It seems she's done away now with the kind of the long story arcs and are doing these kind of one-shot, done-in-one storylines, which I think serves her better, because this isn't actually all that bad and kind of feels more Punisher-y. In a sense, we've got this serial killer that's targeting people in the subways, hence another great cover. I've forgotten who's doing the covers on these, but they always obviously incorporate the Punisher mask, symbol, skull thing. But it has all the quintessential parts of the Punisher. You've got a serial killer, you've got guns, you've got people dying, you've got blood everywhere, you've got the Punisher single-minded, saving people, all the innocents, and getting his man or woman. So for that, give Becky a little bit of kudos for finally bringing us Punisher that we know and love, but really it's a little too late. Don't want to be negative, but The Flash. Negative storyline, issue number 29, and the problem with this one is that it's very talky. There is a lot of talking in here as we get less Flash, more Barry doing his more detective side work, getting involved with his work colleagues, and kind of hunting down who this mole within the company, within the police headquarters is. And I get to a point where, do I really care? There's this kind of mystery in the back about who the boss is, who's sending shrapnel to try and take him down. But at the moment, I'm just not very interested. You've got this great concept of this kind of darkened version of the Flash, and all we've really seen so far is that he doesn't know how this power really works, and unlike his regular Flash powers, these do more damage than help people. But I don't feel that that's being really fleshed out enough at the moment. And we've got this kind of B storyline of this mole being used for, I don't know, maybe it will all kind of come together and mesh, but Joshua Williamson, usually a good strong storyteller, really needs to sort this book out, because I was really enjoying it, Joshua. But see, I hope he hasn't already peaked and now it's just going into free fall. Finally, for the kind of underwhelming books, I'm surprised because this is issue 25, and usually the big two like to make a big hoo-ha about 25th issue kind of anniversaries, but they didn't with this. It's Charles Soule's Daredevil, and it's the final part of Supreme. And I have to kind of give them credit in a way, because this is the culmination of Matt Murdock's idea and hopefully winning the court's approval, the High Court's approval, that masked superheroes can give evidence in court. And court scenes aren't the most exciting, so what Charles Soule does along with Morgan and Miller, they make the court scene look like a fight scene. And at first, and pretty much all the way through it, let's be honest, it kind of threw me, because I thought something else was happening that would have been surprising and could have gone down a totally different route. But it was just a kind of representation and trying to kind of action up what would have normally been quite a boring court scene with people just standing around talking. So they made it like a fight between this High Court and himself and the other lawyer who's trying to stop this law from going ahead. I guess the surprising thing about this book, and again, spoilers, Matt Murdock wins. Now, whether Charles Soule will go with this now, on how it will affect the whole of the Marvel Universe itself, we'll have to wait and see. Or will this be a kind of, I don't know, a throwaway storyline that just kind of was within Daredevil and gets forgotten quite easily, because the ramifications of this are huge. They really are. When we think about it, the fact that superheroes can now go into court masked so they don't have to reveal their secret identity and give evidence, it changes a lot of things, especially for these street level type characters, these superheroes. But for me, it just kind of, for a 25th anniversary issue and the culmination of this story, it just felt a little flat, and I want Daredevil to get back into full-on adventuring mode. Yes, we're heading to the land of Kirby. All over the last 4 or 5 weeks, DC have been putting out these celebration one-shots for what would have been Jack Kirby's 100th birthday, and also a 12-issue maxi series for one of his probably most loved creations, Kamandi, the last boy on Earth. And we've had some ups and downs with them. They've now completed all the one-shots. The Kamandi Challenge is still going on. We're going to kick off with the Kamandi Challenge first. It's issue number 8 of 12, so we're nearing the end. Though we haven't really got a coherent storyline. We seem to have forgotten all about Kamandi's search for his parents and all the weirdness that happened at the beginning, which has affected this book a great deal. Now, it's no denying Steve Rude on art, great stuff. And I would have thought having Keith Kiffin on the storyline as well would have made this a home run. But this story is such a mess. It's so chaotic, and it just doesn't do the great Steve Rude artwork any justice. If this whole idea of the new set of creators taking on the cliffhanger from the old set of creators, it's not really working anymore, because they're just clicking out of whatever they were left with and going on to the story that they wanted to tell, instead of giving that cliffhanger some use in their own story. We saw at the end of the last issue that Kamandi had one of the kind of metal brain converting creatures on the back of his neck, and I was expecting maybe Kamandi to go a bit dark before managing to get that thing off his neck. But no, Giffen and Rude want that out of the way, and he crash lands on an island, and that's done with the strange insecty metal creature. And what we get is these two vying tribes who think Kamandi, for each of them, is their saviour, their hero that's going to tip the balance between this long war between the two. And apart from that, I couldn't really tell you any more what was going on. It was just chaos. And I didn't enjoy it at all. And it kills me to say that, because I really wanted this book to be just a wonderful tribute to one of my favourite DC characters that Kirby ever created. But as the issues have gone on and on, the tribute, the honour, the homage to a great Kirby character has just been completely lost. They really should have got, whether they did this or not, but I very much doubt it, get these creators in a room all together and discuss how this was going to work, and it doesn't feel like they did that at all. They just threw a lot of big names at this and hoped it would sell. Whether it is or not, I don't know. Of course I'm going to finish the run off. It's a Kamandi, and it's not often you see Kamandi on the shelves anymore. So however good or bad it is, I'm going to pick it up. So let's get on to those one-shots. And we have Manhunter, which is one of Kirby's earlier creations. Again, it's a character that I'm not very familiar with. I know of him existing, but what I got from this, more than a lot of the other ones, certainly some have looked like Kirby, certainly some have sounded like Kirby, but not always the two have come together. And I feel like with this one, those two parts of this Kirby tribute finally come together. It looks like a Kirby book. The vocabulary and the scenarios within this feels like a Kirby book, but of course it's got that modern feel. It doesn't feel old. It doesn't feel like it's come from a past era. It still feels a little bit fresh, but still keeping to the true sense of Kirby. We have Manhunter, who's how he works in being a hero is definitely different from who he meets up with, which is a version of the Sandman that we see in this book, and they both have very differing views of what it is to be a superhero. And there is a moment in Manhunter where he has to reconsider about the way he literally attacks these villains and takes them down, and he almost gets the feeling he's going to like jack it all in, and then he hears a woman scream in the distance and off he goes to rescue her, because this is what he does. And it just felt really, really good. There was a backup story in here from Dan Didio with Buckingham from Fables fame, on an a demon, Etrigan and the Demon storyline. And I think because they are backup stories, there's not as many pages to it. It kind of lacks something. It was nice to see Etrigan the Demon there, but there wasn't really much to the story more than having to let the demon free again. Jason Blood having housed him and wouldn't let him out for decades upon decades, but there is an evil and he has to let it out because Etrigan is the only one that can put this evil demon down. But still, enjoyed it. This was one of the better ones. We move on to the Black Racer and Shiloh Norman. This was really, really good. It's certainly just using the characters more than homaging it like, say, Manhunter, which we've just seen. But this was a really, really good storyline. They're definitely making a thing of Mr. Miracle at the moment. They really want to push this character onto DC readers because he's been showing up here, there and everywhere, and obviously he's got his own maxi series with Tom King writing that everyone just kind of got all very wet and moist for. But here we have Mr. Miracle doing another of his death-defying escapades, and what we have is the Black Racer coming. There he goes. We have the Black Racer following Mr. Miracle, and whenever he shows up, death is not far behind. So it transpires that this death-defying feat with him attached to a rocket that he has to escape from has been tampered with, and there really is no way of Mr. Miracle escaping this. Hence the Black Racer is there, and there is this great chase using boom tubes, Mr. Miracle kind of grabbing one of Black Racer's skis that he travels on. I mean, this is how crazy and silly but still imaginative Kirby used to be. I mean, you had over at Marvel's Silver Surfer on his surfboard, you had the Black Racer literally on skis. This, you know, the 70s, crazy place. But the story that was going on kind of in the background was very interesting as well, with the way that the Black Racer came about, and his history as a kind of almost a wartime veteran coming back from the war. Everything's changed. And his struggle with being the Black Racer and defying the powers that be that gave him this identity of Black Racer. Very good book, really enjoyed it, one of the best. And finally, the flip side on these are, like I said, there are a few books that have looked like Kirby, there's a few books that have sounded like Kirby, there's some that have managed to mesh between them. With Darkseid Oversized Special, I feel as though I can feel Kirby there, but it looks and sounds nothing like him. We've got Evanier Levitz, Collins and Hester on this book. Levitz and Hester doing the backup of OMAC, which again, it's too short really to have any depth to it. You just get a kind of flavour of OMAC. But it is the Evanier Collins Darkseid book that really shines here. And it does it from an interesting perspective. This book isn't so much about Darkseid, it's about the resistance movement on Darkseid's kind of war planet, and how this revolution, this small, and I mean small, band of revolutionaries are trying to overthrow Darkseid, who are trying to get more people to their cause. And it just kind of shows the way that dictators, those people in power, exert their influence through fear, through death, through just slavery, and kind of keeps them in that frame of mind to the point where they don't have the energy, they don't have the hopefulness anymore that things will change, so they just give up and the status quo is what it is. Just a great look at a kind of resistance movement fighting an unfeasibly large force. And there was a lot of excitement here. There's a great, some great characters in here, villains and the good guys. Just a nice piece of Kirby honour, homage, tribute. I would highly recommend this being one of the books, if you're going to pick any of them, to read, that has more of a modern flavour to Kirby's past. What some may seem as kind of cheesy, cartoony looking stuff they used to do, but without Kirby, I doubt we'd be here now. Yes, they are the books that take us by surprise. At least they took me by surprise this week. Let's just kick off with the first one, and this for me was the most surprising because I didn't really know about this particular character that I'm going to talk about, and it's always been difficult trying to review this book because, as I've said before, it is what it is. I'm talking about issue 12 of Conan the Slayer, and as I thought the last issue was the last part of the current story arc, no, we've got Cullen Bunn adding another kind of epilogue, I guess you call it, to this, as Conan and his current damsel in distress try to get off the island. But what really surprised me and shocked me, and I don't know if I've kind of missed this or forgotten about it or not picked up on it, but we have the introduction, at least for me, of this kind of feral, vampiric kind of character that's been following Conan because Conan kills a lot of people and leaves a lot of dead bodies in his wake for this creature to feed on. While Conan is aware of this character, he doesn't seem to do anything about him, and that surprised me. He's kind of quite willing to let this feral creature in a kind of humanoid form follow him and basically be a kind of vulture, a kind of hyena type character picking off everything that he's killed, and not actually take him out himself. So I hope Cullen Bunn has some interesting storylines to take with that, because that's something I've not yet seen, and whether this is a creation of Cullen Bunn's or if this is a character within the canon of Conan stories from Robert E. Howard. But I was I was very surprised, and the artwork by Dheeraj Verma and the colours by Michael Atiyah really kind of worked magic on this book, and I really was, as I said, taken by surprise with this book. Normally I struggle to talk about it in the sense that it is literally just hacking and slashing and saving of damsels in distress, and that I love, but it's not very interesting to talk about. So I was glad to have this interesting kind of side story epilogue that kind of adds another element of danger to this. It was my pick of the week in the last issue, and maybe it could have been pick of the week again if I hadn't missed a week out. But nonetheless, it was a very, very good book and showed a different side of our Lazarus universe. It's Lazarus X plus 66. Rucka is still writing this, while Lark has a little bit of a rest, but still does the covers on this. And it's interesting now with these kind of one-shots. I mean, the main story, we're very much focused on the Carlisle family and their Lazarus Forever and how they interact. And while we hear about and we see other Lazaruses from the other families, we don't really delve very much into their family life and how they see this world, this kind of post-apocalyptic universe where governments are no more, it's families, these kind of 4 or 5 families that rule the world now. So this one, we look at the Mornay, yeah, I think it's Mornay family, and their Lazarus, who is kind of part machine, part human now, and it just takes a very interesting turn. The family, there's obviously a love interest there. There's a kind of switch that the family have not yet used. They're trying to gauge the honour and the loyalty of their Lazarus, and they keep throwing these missions at him, and while he kind of proves himself again and again, the romance bit at the back kind of puts a bit of a block on just him proving himself. So there is clearly a switch within the machine that is going to make him 100% loyal to the Mornay family, and it's not so much father that deals with this but the mother of the family. So that was really exciting, and again, it's nice to see all that going on in these one-shots. And on to Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. As the title of this little segment said, surprises aren't always good. They can be kind of bad, and sometimes it comes as no surprise. I want to like this. Visually, I do. It's very... Cuba and Valaire really do this book justice. They make the panels all very interesting, very fast moving, but Zdarsky has got to hold back a little bit. Just come back a little bit with the humour. Every other line does not need to be a quip, a joke, a backhanded compliment, something humorous. Because it just gets a little bit much, it then doesn't become as the tensions of the scene, the element of danger is lost. We get it. Spider-Man has his witty banter, but he doesn't always use it. And there are points in this book that I think, did we really need to have that one-liner zinger going? Let's just hold back a bit. We've got Spider-Man with the Human Torch and his maybe sister, who wasn't a sister, who could be his sister. It's very confusing for someone who has left Spider-Man for so long. Going up against Kingpin and all his cronies because they think he's behind the whole Stark cell phones deal. It's still a fun book. I said visually it's very exciting, it's very dynamic, but Zdarsky, editing tool, oh sorry, that's what editors are for. Do your job. Doctor Strange issue number 24. I think and I hope and I pray that this little Secret Empire symbol will have gone for the next issue. Not that this was that bad. This kind of wraps up, I guess, Doctor Strange and Mordo's big fight, and it all seems to have been one big huge ruse from the very start. This has been planned from the very beginning. Everyone who has been captured, there's been a reason for it, and it's one big all-out magical battle, and I think it would have looked better with someone else on the artwork. There are pages that feel messy, that feel unfinished, that feel too dark for this kind of blazing magical battle that is going on. Of course, by the end of this, the heroes win, Mordo is brought down, but we still have this dark bubble over the city. I have a feeling that will have just disappeared once the next issue comes along. Whether we'll get an explanation, given that Secret Empire has now finished, who knows. I would like a different artist on this. Dennis Hopeless seems to be doing a great job story-wise. He has an understanding of Doctor Strange and this new kind of set of power rules that Doctor Strange has, and obviously the reduced capacity of magic in the world after the empirical storyline. But still having a lot of fun with this. Finally, for the surprise, is X-Men Blue issue number 10, and yes, this has come away from the umbrella of Secret Empire, and what we have is Colin Bunn, busy man, giving kind of each of the characters their own kind of spotlight and pushing each of their own storylines, but firmly focusing on our Beast character, who, if you remember, if you're reading this book, if you don't know, these are the time-displaced younger versions of the X-Men, and we've always known Hank McCoy, the Beast, as that kind of analytical, scientific character, but he's been playing around a lot with dark magic, and this is where surprise villain comes in. Forget spoilers, it's coming. It's the Goblin Queen. She's back. Yes, character from, are we talking the 90s? Even earlier? Late 80s, early 90s. But she's back, and she's been manipulating Beast, and we see him opening up this portal that's going to let in lots of dark versions of the X-Men. She's quite quaintly called them the Hexmen. But like I said, the other characters are having their own storylines as well. We've got Iceman and the Danger Room personified, I forget, is she just called Danger? But they're having kind of like a sparring session. Danger training Iceman to make the most of his powers. We've seen his kind of power set grow and grow over the decades, and I think it's just Danger trying to push that skill set really far straight away, rather than have that kind of that decades long wait that the original Iceman, the grown up Iceman, had to achieve over a longer set of time. We've got the Scott and Jean burgeoning romance starting. Who else have we got in here? Who else are we missing? Not Psylocke, Polaris and Magneto have a conversation about what Magneto is really doing with these kids, given, you know, his evil history, but we don't really get that much from it. We all know what Magneto is up to, but he's keeping his cards very close to his chest. But it was fun, it was energetic, and glad we can now, you know, just kind of progress with X-Men Blue on its own rather than being part of another event. in any comic book reader's pull list, there are always those titles that you know are going to be a great read. They may not be the best of the week, they're certainly not going to be the worst of the week, but they're always solid reads. And these 4 books that I've got now definitely show that. Beginning with Fiona Staple and Brian K. Vaughan's saga, we're up to chapter 46. We're still on this abortion planet, the storyline of Alana, who has lost her baby but is still within the womb, giving her these amazing powers, but if she leaves it in there for too long, she will die herself. But it's not that part of the storyline that really got me this issue. It is indeed Prince Robot and Petrichor's uneasy alliance relationship that occurs in this book. And again, I'm talking spoilers here because they kind of switched tracks here. When we picked up an issue of Saga, it was always the first page that was quite shocking or surprising or just flat out amazingly imaginative. And they've kind of switched it now. It's the last page that gives us that wow shock value. And this is no exception, as Prince Robot just finally manages to save Petrichor from these kind of Westerners, country and Western? No, just Western style characters who are a bit like bounty hunters. They go around this kind of, I keep calling it abortion planet. I really don't like saying that, but it is what it is. And they've caught Petrichor and they're gonna hang her kind of KKK style. And you get this element that Petrichor really has had enough and didn't actually want to be saved. She kind of makes out that perhaps she wanted to die and just wanted to have done with it all. And there is this argument between Prince Robot and Petrichor, who are literally, in the grand kind of saga scheme of it all, would-be enemies, but they've kind of been kind of crashed together in this kind of family drama. And you can just see the sexual tension building and building and building, and you don't think they're going to go there, but that final page of them in this, I mean, it is a weird embrace. You've got a guy whose head is a TV, and this kind of woman stroke man with horns, embracing, kissing, and that just takes us, well, who knows where Vaughan and Staples is going to take that. But this felt like a really great issue. The other side of the story is, of course, the house where this very strange wolf-type creature is going to perform the operation that is going to remove the dead baby from Alana's body. And we also have Hazel with what would have been, I guess, the child that she was carrying kind of at the age that Hazel is. And there's that kind of element of the family, the brother that never was, and eventually it disappears, it goes. But we don't know whether Alana has survived. This is a book. Vaughan is not shy at killing off favourite characters, really kind of integral characters. Whether this is going to be one of those moments, perhaps we'll see in the next issue, or Vaughan and Staples might keep us hanging for a while and we'll go off and have someone else's story for a little bit longer. Matt Kint and Charlene Kint's Department H, issue number 17 of this murder, mystery, survival, horror book, which has just defined genre. defied genre, because it has gone all over the place. The end of last issue, we had this giant turtle that seemed to be having human sacrifices thrown at it, but we don't really follow that up a great deal, as we have another of those flashbacks to is it Mia? I think it's Mia. There's so many names in here, but Mia and her kind of adopted sister, and how they grew up together, and eventually how their very initially close relationship became stressed and they were kind of torn apart from each other. I do feel this is kind of getting into Lost TV kind of area, where they're giving us more and more questions and scenarios rather than answering a lot of stuff. Of course, the big question is still who killed her father, but I'm enjoying the heck out of this book. It's Matt Kindt at his most inventive, most creative, and really showing off some interesting storytelling techniques, and the art. If you're into it, the Matt Kindt kind of the artwork that looks unfinished but suits that kind of style of book that he's portraying. So good stuff. David Lapham's Stray Bullets, Sunshine and Roses, issue 27. Just another great instalment of this ongoing series now, where we have Kretschmeyer and Annie being Beth's mother, doing a kind of Bonnie and Clyde thing where they kind of teamed up and are doing robberies all the way down to wherever they're going. And it's their weird relationship that gets pretty dark along the way. Annie's face, she had a stroke in the last couple of issues, and she certainly didn't look her most gorgeous self that she likes to portray to the world around her. But that seems to have kind of almost sorted itself out now. And the darkness that comes from that is that Kretschmeyer now finds her less attractive. But going back to Kretschmeyer's kind of hometown, where his family was brought up as he goes to try and look for his brother, gives him the stimulus to basically get horny again, as we have an all-out gunfight in this small town, and people's heads get shot at, and pretty gruesome stuff, which gets Kretschmeyer's ardour back up. And there's just so much humour and fun through here. There's a part where you almost think Annie's had enough, and she's gonna kind of like, despite the fact that she'd always be with Kretschmeyer, she's gonna stick with him and follow this through. It almost looks like she's had enough and she's gonna run away, but she's got smarts up there, and she has a plan to save Kretschmeyer from this kind of shootout that's going on, and it's just done in such an over-the-top hilarious fashion that you can't help but smile and love this book that just continues to be great, and I love it. Finally, before we get to the pick of the week, it's Manowar, issue number 6, and I think this is the last part of the general storyline that Matt Kindt has been doing here, with Doug Braithwaite and Diego Rodriguez doing a stunning job on the art as always. But we have Arik kind of turning on his masters, I guess, him being part of this army going up the ranks, but realising that the people in charge have been lying. They've been making this worse than this war worse than it actually needs to be, and not telling him the whole truth. And it's in this issue that the tables are turned. Where Matt Kindt is going to go with this next, I can't wait to find out. But I'm so surprised with this book and how much I've really been enjoying it. Great sci-fi action with that, as I said before, Conan-esque feel to it, but I'm excited to see more of the XMen Manowar armour as well, which we've not really seen a great deal. We've seen kind of bits of it, but that is certainly coming into play very, very soon. Love this book. It's pick of the week time, yes, and it's the book, I can't remember if it came out this week or last week now, but it was the best book I've read in the last fortnight, and it was from the great Remender at Image Comics. It's Deadly Class, issue number 30. Then we've taken a small smidgen of a break from this particular storyline, but this is very reminiscent of a storyline that took place with the original team, and this is what I liked about this. The premise, the concept of the storyline is very similar, but the way they go about it is very, very different, as our new set of freshers at the Assassin's School go on a road trip. And what Remender does quite cleverly here is he drops hints of what has spurred this road trip on that we haven't actually seen yet. And if you read the back matter, the letters page, his little comments before that, you will find out that yes, we will be going back to that to find out how they got here. But I do these moments where it's kind of like those bottle episodes that you find on TV shows where the story, the action takes very much place in one particular room or setting, and it just involves a certain amount of characters and it doesn't kind of push out from there to any other sets or environments. And most of the storyline takes place within the car. Now, although this is my pick of the week, I did kind of struggle a little bit, and I don't know if this is me or if my knowledge of the era, given this is set in 1988, but there did seem a lot of talk about race and racism, I guess you'd say. And I don't know if, especially for these particular characters being of such a young age, that they would be having this conversation, and it feels more of Remender using what is happening in the world right now and inserting it into this storyline to make a point. Not that it was badly written, but I just felt a little bit at odds with that whole conversation about how these minority characters dealt with being a minority and what they can and can't do within the constructs of their kind of era. Maybe I just don't know enough of that, of the kind of late 80s and what the kind of feeling was around there. It just feels like right now it feels much worse than it's been for decades. But I'm sure it was as bad back in the late 80s, but we're kind of veering off into political nature there. I want to go back to the storyline, and yes, this is the whole road trip adventure where they're kind of getting to know each other. Remender plays around with, he's clearly a lover of music and likes to throw that into his storylines and make them part of, it's almost a character in itself, which I just love. And hearing all these bands from the 80s that are that are not necessarily, you know, the big names of the 80s, the big super groups and pop chart hitters, but they're definitely bands and artists that I remember growing up and loving in the 80s. And after reading this, I just want to go and hit up Spotify and start tapping the name of the band in and playing some tracks of theirs. So just that being part of this book is just a great thing. So you get the feeling that this is still being orchestrated by Cain, who has been blackmailed into finding Marcus, and that's why they're going to their one destination, trying to make it out like it's a holiday, great beaches, drink, girls, boys, the whole shebang. And it doesn't take long for them to just by coincidence bump into Marcus, who is trying to actually get back, escape with Saya, and go and help the friends out like Petra. But when they turn up, there's an uneasiness there. It's palpable. Saya's very excited to see Petra back, but obviously Petra is the one that killed Marcus's best friend Willie, and so this certainly isn't going to be a happy reunion. This is going to be a arms wide open, embracing and feeling the love. There is definitely going to be some tension between the group, and of course there's Quan's double dealing agenda that he's got of his own to get Marcus back, and for the people that are blackmailing him. Again, this is just a great wrapped up present of a comic book with Craig and Boyd's art and colouring on this. It's always a great book to read. If you've not been reading Deadly Class, this is such a fantastic book. It evokes the era it's meant to be in. There's so many lovely Easter eggs, not just musically, but you know, all pop culture of that kind of 80s era is in here, and if you're a fan of that or you grew up in that time, you will definitely see the references. Just fantastic, great stuff from this. And that's it. Not so much of a nutshell that I was hoping, but I hope you're still here and have enjoyed everything you've heard. Don't forget to comment in the comment section down below. Let me know all about the books that I picked up, and if you agree or disagree. I don't mind if you disagree. Just have your own thoughts and opinions. Give this video a big thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the red button. Thank you to everyone who already has. You'll be getting a shout out in Wednesday's video. Until next time, bye-bye.